Low cost property or expensive premium property? What's best for investment, taking into account Labour government's new housing and tax plans? Hello, I'm Dr. T and welcome to How to Invest in UK Property. In this video, we ask, should you get a low cost property or high-end, more expensive property when buying for investment? And should the Labour government's plans to build more houses, renters' rights bill, and tax changes affect your decision? Prices for properties vary greatly, and even in the same location, you'll find lower cost and more expensive properties. Let's assume you've got a budget of £300,000, either via loans or in cash. You could buy one property for £300,000, for example, a city centre apartment or a large, nice house in that market area, or four small, low-cost properties such as terrace two-bed houses in lower cost areas. So which is best? I'll cover the pros and cons of each and give you my personal view at the end. Before we start, please remember to like this video and watch the message at the end from our channel sponsor, findukproperty.com. So we're going to cover 6 main factors when deciding on low cost or expensive property. The main criterion is investment return, and this consists of the rental yield and the capital growth in value. We're also going to cover the impact of the Labour government's plans to build more houses, renters' rights, and tax changes. The other factors include mortgage considerations, ease of building a property portfolio, and risk and flexibility. An average rent on a low-cost house may be £6,000 per year, whereas a more expensive property of around £300,000 may give a typical rent of around £12,000 per year. So rents per property are much higher for premium properties. When you compare the annual rent to the property price, though, to work out the percentage rental yield, the gross rental yield is 8% for the cheaper house compared to just 4% for the more expensive house. Now, with a budget of 300,000, you could buy 4 cheaper houses compared with just one expensive house and get total rent for the 4 houses together of £24,000. So actually, cheaper properties give better rent, about double the rent for the same property value. You can see on this chart, which shows approximate average gross rental yields by property value, irrespective of the location. You can see as the properties get more expensive, the rent rises, as one would expect. But the percentage rental yield falls, and it doesn't matter where they're located. In general, lower cost properties are in the north, whereas more expensive properties are near London and the south. More expensive properties do have some benefits. They will attract better, more professional tenants, so you may have less tenant and non-payment issues. Also, for the same budget, your maintenance costs would be less, as you would have to maintain just one expensive property rather than 4 cheaper ones. So for this reason, the net yield after costs, while still almost double for low cost houses, are less higher because having more lower cost properties for the same total value will have higher maintenance costs. Let's talk about capital growth. Many clients think that capital growth is higher on more expensive properties, but it's not true. The growth per property is higher, but percentage capital growth is actually the same over the very long term. This chart shows the average percentage annual housing growth over the past 70 years by property value. These are averages for all locations. On average, houses have doubled in value every 12 years, and the average annual increase has been around 7% in almost all areas of the UK and all types of houses. This is the average over the long term. However, growth may happen in spurts, and demand for certain categories of houses in some areas may grow at a faster rate than others over a short period of time. For example, more expensive mid-range houses with gardens grew better than others for the 3-year period during and after COVID. You can see this sort of trend historically, but predicting with any certainty which type of house are going to grow better in the future is difficult. Now, many experts think that in the future, the percentage capital growth in the next 10 years is likely to be higher on lower cost houses, as this is where demand is increasing the most. These days, families are getting smaller, Increasingly, families are more likely to have a pet cat or a dog rather than multiple children. Also, many young people want independence from family and parents, so smaller houses are in demand. So I would agree that it is likely that percentage growth in the lower cost houses may be higher than more expensive, larger market houses. Now let's talk about the Labour government's plans for the housing sector and taxes. There are three main aspects to this. Firstly, Labour want to build 1.5 million more houses in the next 5 years. Labour has already introduced the Renters' Rights Bill to make it fairer for tenants with abolition of no-fault evictions, higher property standards, higher Grade C energy efficiency requirements, and longer notice periods. And they may increase taxes, including capital gains tax. We know that low-cost properties, such as two-bed houses at £75,000, are below the build cost. If you were to knock such a house down and rebuild it, it would cost you almost double. The minimum cost to rebuild a two-bedroom house in the UK is around £125,000, excluding the land. In low-cost areas such as the north, the land to build a two-bed house may be cheap. For example, £25,000. A developer could sell a newly built two-bed house for £150,000, but not much lower. When they do this, the average price of two-bed houses in the area increases and the area becomes more desirable, which pushes up the prices of existing low-cost houses. Now, in more expensive areas, currently prices of two-bed houses are much higher, for example, £300,000. Assuming the same build cost of £125,000 and more expensive land, £100,000, a developer could build the house and sell for £250,000 and could even make extra profit of £25,000. If they do this, the average price of houses in the area will decrease and the value of the older houses may not grow as fast or could even go down. So Labour's plans would raise the value of cheaper properties in lower cost areas. So buying such cheap houses that are below the rebuild cost would be better. In fact, what is likely is that most houses will get built in more expensive areas in the south, as this is more profitable for developers. In terms of Renters' Rights Bill, I've covered this in another video, but overall, the changes have similar impact on high cost or low cost houses. My view is that these changes are not likely to affect good professional landlords who already treat tenants fairly, do not use Section 21 indiscriminately, have high property standards, are properties with EPC Grade C rating, and look after long-term tenants. Let's move to tax. Capital gain is the profit you make when you resell a property. The capital gains tax you pay is lower if the gain in each tax year is lower, such that you remain a low rate taxpayer. Now, it can be better to have multiple lower cost houses so that when you want to resell, you can sell one house each year and keep your capital gain at a lower level and pay tax at a lower rate as your gain is spread out over a number of years. With one expensive property, you would end up paying the highest rate as all the gain would be realized in one tax year. Let's consider mortgages. One of the key criteria relating to mortgages is that the net rent you get should be more than the interest you have to pay. So mortgages are easier with lower cost properties because, as explained earlier, the net rental yields are higher on lower cost properties. With high cost properties, typically the net rent is less than the interest these days, and you have negative cash flow, so the mortgage is not viable. As interest rates fall, this will become easier again, but interest rates are unlikely to fall to the previous very low levels. Many investors want to build a property portfolio and gradually acquire a number of properties over time. This gives them options for the future and enables them to have good pension type income and also have assets to pass to their family. Building a portfolio is easier with lower cost houses as each purchase step is smaller value. With more expensive properties, it's harder as the steps are larger and your money is sitting around not doing anything for longer whilst you save up to afford the more expensive property. There are two ways of building a portfolio. When interest rates are low, then leveraging your money by borrowing has been the best investment strategy in the past. However, with high interest rates, the advantage is less. Mortgages also add uncertainty, risk, and delays due to the approval process. These days, many clients do not want to use mortgages, may not wish to take risks or remain in debt, or don't qualify, such as investors from overseas. Low-cost houses are more affordable, so they enable investors to build a portfolio without using mortgages, using the BSR method and the two-step process. This only works with low-cost properties and takes longer than mortgages, but means there is less risk and no debt. So how does the buy, save, repeat method work for passive investors? First, you buy a very low-cost property that's already renovated, already rented, with ongoing maintenance, and gives you net rent from day one and no extra cost or hassle. Then you continue saving from what you normally do and are good at, your work or your business, and of course the net rent. With this system, there's no interest and all the rent can be saved and reinvested. Then in a few years, once you have enough savings, you can repeat the process and gradually build a portfolio of low-cost houses. Because the properties are low cost, you can do this in small steps. And another tool to help you with the BSR method is the two-step process that makes the steps even smaller. Here you buy a one-bedroom interim property for £40,000 in step one. Then save £20,000 over 3 years and also build over £10,000 from owning the one-bed house. Then you can upgrade to the £70,000 two-bed house in step two, then repeat. This method is only possible with low-cost properties, and it takes longer to build a portfolio without using mortgages. But whilst interest rates remain high, this is a good strategy, especially for those who want to minimize risks and don't want to or cannot use mortgages. In terms of risks, they are less with lower cost properties. For the same budget, for example, 300,000, investors could buy 4 low cost houses instead of one expensive one. So this allows you to diversify and reduce risks, as all the eggs are not in one basket. If there's a problem with one tenant, or if one property is vacant or in need of repair, it doesn't affect the others and investors still continue to get income. Your risk may also be lower with low cost properties should there be a recession. As explained before, lower cost properties are often below the rebuild cost. This means that the price of the property is lower than it would cost to rebuild, even if you put no value on the land. Thus, they're already at rock bottom prices and are likely to fall less in a recession than more expensive properties. As there is always demand at the lower end of the market, and such demand actually increases in a recession when everyone is cost cutting and looking for smaller properties to buy or rent. Having multiple low cost properties also gives you flexibility in that you can sell one and keep the others if you need any money in an emergency. Whereas if you only have one expensive property, the options are limited. Certain high cost properties, such as large houses with multiple rooms, could be converted to smaller units using permitted development rights, or even to houses with multiple occupation, where each room is rented separately to a tenant. In such a case, the net rental yield could be increased, and they can benefit from some of the benefits of low-cost properties. However, such a purchase is only suitable for active investors who are willing to renovate and develop the property into smaller units. Such HMO type properties also have higher management costs, may need local licensing, and are only suitable for larger cities where there is demand for such one-room units. So in summary, when comparing properties, percentage rental yields are better on low-cost houses, but total maintenance costs may be higher and there may be more tenant issues. The overall net yield is still around double. Percentage capital growth over the long term is historically similar, and future percentage capital growth may be higher on low-cost and smaller properties. Labour government's plans also make it more attractive to buy lower-cost properties. Lower-cost properties make it easier to build property portfolios, have lower risk, and provide more flexibility. So my personal view, for active investors, an expensive or larger property that is local to them may still be good value if it's within their budget and could be converted to smaller units. However, in general, multiple lower cost houses are better for most passive investors as they provide better investment return, ability to build a portfolio gradually, lower risk and more flexibility, and they could also benefit more from Labour's plans. Please watch the message from our sponsor at the end. I'm Dr. T, and this is How to Invest in UK Property.
Hi, at Find UK Property, we buy freehold houses, renovate them to a decent standard and rent them out to good tenants. We then sell them to passive investors whilst managing and maintaining them fully. Please watch these videos to learn more. Visit our website at findukproperty.com.